Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation on 3D multidisciplinary plant engineering collaboration and execution, basically. In today's session, I'll be talking about how to execute a plant project, which tools from Autodesk solutions would be helpful in doing integrations with plant engineering projects, basically. And my name is Preeti Rao. I'm a senior technical solution specialist, and I specialize in plant and structural solutions. Please take a note of our safe harbor statement. Uh, there's a poll session at the end of the webinar. Try to answer the polls as well, and you could win good goodies out of the answering the poll questions, basically. We also have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation where you could post your questions in the chat window, and we could answer all your questions at the end of the session, basically. Now, the first part, when I talk about any multidisciplinary plant design project, I'll talk about one of a solution which is called as Autodesk AEC collection workflow, which is there in basically. And as a part of the AEC collection workflow, we have a set of tools which are available for different purposes in that case, basically. Starting from something like Autodesk AutoCAD Plant 3D, which could enable you in creating or designing your drafting your P&IDs, designing, modeling, and drafting of your process plant documentation, which is therein. That includes your 3D modeling aspects, which are therein, and also generation of intelligent documentation which comes as a part of plant 3D, like orthographics, isometrics, even the reports which needs to be generated for any kind of process plants which are there in basically. The next part is like, again, your plant projects are divided into different parts of the workflow, basically. So it could be a greenfield project or a brownfield project which is there. And during my last webinar, I discussed about how to use the scanning processes and using cloud point technologies and utilizing tools like a Recap Pro, which could be helpful in creating projects which needs to be digitized or which needs to be scanned for that matter, and converting those scanned information into intelligent modeling tools which are there basically. As a part of Autodesk Plant 3D, we also have a facility of P&ID which forms an integral part of AEC collection and is also an inbuilt feature of Plant 3D in that case. And now P&ID as a tool could help you into drafting P&IDs. Preferably some might be as a standard part of the library where the P&IDs could be drafted. Others could be, you could also convert your AutoCAD P&IDs into intelligent P&IDs in this case, basically. So that is where your AutoCAD P&ID tool becomes quite helpful in that particular case, basically. The third aspect is, I'll go on to the structural aspects of a process plant or a plant project which is there in, where you could utilize tools like advanced steel or Revit for that matter. When I differentiate between Revit and advanced steel, if it is a concrete detailing project which is therein, you could integrate or you could transfer information between Plant 3D and Revit, model out the concrete elements inside Revit, detail out those information in Revit, generate your sectional elevational details, plant details, as well as in the BBA schedules which you require for your structural concrete components. Similarly, when it comes to the steel detailing aspect of it, we could utilize the tool like advanced steel for that purpose, and which we could transfer information between Plant 3D and Advanced Steel, or between Plant 3D and Revit, via the SMLX file format, or a file format which is very native to Autodesk, in order to do these integration for structural components. Now, Advanced Steel could help you in modeling the steel elements, whereas it will also help in detailing of the connections. It could also help you in generating your general arrangement drawings, your shop drawings, and the fabrication components. Now, there are certain parameters also in a plant project, like a building unit, which might come into that particular process plant or plant which is there in, basically. So that particular building projects might have architectural components, might have MPP components, where you could utilize tools like Revit and AutoCAD MEP for that matter, in order to design both mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components, both in a CAD format, or in case if you want it to be more BIM format, you could utilize tools like Revit MEP to model that. And similarly, we all know that Revit also has architectural functionality, so you could utilize Revit also to model those kind of project elements, which form an important part of a multidisciplinary plant project. Not saying that we also have a tool which is AutoCAD, which also forms a part of the AEC collection, which is there in, basically, and any other aspects which we feel that is not being taken care by your modeling aspects in Plant 3D, structural aspects of Advanced Steel, Revit, or MEP for that matter, or the P&ID or Recap Pro. We could utilize tools like AutoCAD in order to do drafting. In short, I mean that you could also use the powerful tools of CAD as well, and it also forms an important part of AEC collection for that particular matter, which is there, basically. Now, when we talk about these number of disciplines which form a part of any multidisciplinary plant project, the end output comes down to a piece where you want to review and do a project visualization of your plant project, which is there in, where we could utilize tools like Autodesk Navisworks Manage, which could help you to do multiple design packages. It could help you in creating photorealistic project visuals which are therein. It could also help in identifying those clashes. It could help you in doing project simulations where you want to integrate with MSP Primavera for that matter. Navisworks also has capabilities of quantification aspects which are therein, basically. So that's how a whole component of an AEC collection workflow could be utilized in your multidisciplinary plant project. Now let's understand, because a plant project or a process plant, it goes through a set of stages which are therein. Let's see how our Autodesk AEC solution, along with certain components of other portfolios of Autodesk, could help you in doing the EPC and the engineering aspect better, basically. Any plant project, process project, it goes through a set of stages where you conceive the project, you model the project, you optimize that and coordinate, basically. So when it comes to the conceptual part or the conceiving aspect of it, basically, like where you want to draft P&IDs, where you want to model plant elements, electrical instrumentation elements which form a part of plant project, you could utilize tools like Plant 3D, AutoCAD Electrical for that matter, AutoCAD MEP for that matter in that case, basically, which takes the whole care of your plant and MEP aspect. But saying that a multidisciplinary plant project doesn't end with only modeling the plant and the structural components. A plant project also comprises of a lot of pieces or parameters which are therein, that could be related to the topography of the land where your new plant is coming up, basically, the contour information which is therein, the approach roads which are therein for bringing up your equipments which are therein, basically, or visualization of that plant in. And in that particular case where you are talking about other components of the plant project, which involves the civil aspects, the infrastructure aspects, the medium of transportation which is there in order to send your components and equipment equipment while you're erecting these aspects in the construction site basically. That is where tools like InfraWorks and Civil 3D can come down very, very handy in that case. And now InfraWorks is one of the conceptual tool which could be preferably utilized at the very initial stage where your P&ID drafting and your understanding of the site or the feasibility of the site could be understood basically. So these processes could go ahead in. And if you want to do a more detailed designing of your roads or infrastructure for that matter, now if it is a plant and if it is some mining utilities, etc., there are other aspects like the way of transportation by rail, roads, etc. It could be something which is internal to that particular organization. It could be something that there is those kind of transportation modes are already available. But Civil 3D is one such tool which could help you in doing detailed designing of these aspects for infrastructure projects, like starting from roads, rails, etc., which is there in basically. Now, last time I talked about Recap Pro, where I said that in case if the projects are scan projects which are leading to maintenance aspects which are therein, you're building up a new plant, or you're trying to extend your existing plant where you could bring in the data from the original plant which is there in basically, and start maintaining those plants, or even the asset management aspect. So as I spoke last time, that we could do more things in Recap Pro which is there in basically, but not saying that there are tools like Revit which could be also utilized in the optimization and the coordination stages which are therein, where I said components like the factory utilities which are therein, the building components which also form sometimes a part of the plant projects which are therein basically. So modeling those architectural objects, map objects, or the concrete elements which are therein, which could be again compromised or used with advanced steel for that matter, for designing and detailing of these projects basically. Now, Navisworks could also predominantly also form an important piece, because at the end, when you are aggregating your whole project from plant, from structures, from the other tools like electrical, map, etc., it could all come and get aggregated in Navisworks, which could help you in doing a better simulation, better management of that particular piece of the project which is there in basically. But last and not the least is the bottom periphery, where the tool like BIM 360 design. And the beauty is like a BIM 360 design could be used from the very, very first stages of where you're using conceptual tools which are therein. And BIM 360 design is an open collaboration platform which could help you integrate with more than 150 file formats. It could help you collaborating on the cloud which is therein basically, and it could help you in communicating between different stakeholders of the different pieces of the project. And while we are talking about this workflow, we forgot about something like the construction piece of it, where the same BIM 360 design approach could be utilized, and we could add an additional services from the BIM 360 portfolio in order to manage any of our plant project which is there in basically. So starting up very first is like, I'll talk about how BIM 360 design could be useful basically, and what BIM 360 is all about basically. Now, BIM 360 design, when it officially released, people thought that it's a document management solution. It could only collaborate with Revit. But recently, at the in the last month, what we did is like, we also released BIM 360 design as a connected platform for collaborating on your planned projects on the cloud basically. So in case if you're using something like a server based system, you've got your local server which is there where you're aggregating your plant information, aggregating your Revit information, you need not worry about those space in, because we're all working from home currently. And what we could do is like, we could take the benefit of BIM 360 design in that case, and basically, and the information resides on the cloud. You've got facilities in Plant 3D to integrate with BIM 360 design. And as I'm moving ahead with my presentation, I'll talk about how it could be integrated better basically. Now, when I talk about the different stages which could be utilized on a BIM 360 platform, your project data, it becomes the central piece of information which is there in basically. And when I talk about these central pieces of information which is there, it could move from the very first stage of a designing which is therein, where you are doing the using authoring tools like Revit, you're using authoring tools like Plant 3D, Civil 3D, and all your stakeholders are working on different modules of these particular tools, and they're trying to collaborate. So BIM 360 can collaborate with any of these three native applications which are therein. Meanwhile, it doesn't mean that you could choose only authoring application. You could collaborate. For example, a plant project which is divided into different zones and different parts of the model which is there in, basically what you could do is like you could divide in your plant project into different zones. Each zone could be checked in on the cloud. You could collaborate on the, and every stakeholder, preferably one piece person is working on project or zone A, he could collaborate his information. Subsequently, the other members of that project can also consume that information and start utilizing that particular piece of information which is therein, basically. The next stage is the pre-construction stage which is therein. And in the pre-construction stage, preferably BIM 360 wider portfolio also has capabilities which could do something like your constructability checks for a EPC plant project. It could do something like a coordination check. It could do even things like class checks on your EPC or a plant project which is there, basically. And similarly, when you're trying to erect these things on the construction site, whether it is placement of doing footing which is therein, concrete footings which needs to be laid in, placement of equipments which are therein, or erection of the steel elements, basically. So the field execution piece of BIM 360 could handle in information related to the progress of your activities which are happening for a plant project. It could even track the quality aspects, safety aspects which are therein, and you could coordinate better in that case, basically. And the other piece is like the handover and the operation piece which is there in, basically. So in case if you're trying to maintain that project of a plant project for the next 20-30 years, preferably you need to digitize all these information, and whatever data which gets accumulated from the first point of design is very beneficial to the last stage of handover and operation, where we could utilize this for the further maintenance and the commissioning of that project, basically. Now, while we are pushing all these kind of information on the cloud, and as it is sitting on the cloud, basically, now whatever data which we push it in the form of drawings, in the form of documents which are there in, basically, and also information in the terms of markups or issues for that matter, everything is being stored on the cloud. And what it does is like it gives you accurate analytics, it gives you insight about your project. So in case if you want to have a same mega scale power project which is there in, preferably you are well informed as to what kind of issues might come up, and those information could be thrown up in the form of analytics which are therein, or a better AI understanding of your plant project for that matter which is there, basically. And the bottom piece, which is the orange band, where you see something like Autodesk Forge which is there in, basically, where you could integrate tools with like your SAP systems, ERP systems, Power BI. The APIs are open to integrate for any kind of a plant project in that case, basically. Moving further, we understood how BIM 360 could work as a connected platform. What I could do is like, let's understand how the different tools. So for example, the design, authoring, and the collaboration tools could be your Revit, you could be Civil 3D, Advanced Steel for that matter, 3ds Max, Navisworks, AutoCAD. So any of these tools which you utilize could all be pushed on the cloud, which are AEC collection tools. It could also lead with the integration, where I talked about with Forge, where you want to integrate with the cost solution which is therein, you want to integrate with the project project management tool which is therein. You want to integrate with something like AR and VR aspects which are therein basically. So all those could be combined, and every piece of information could come together on the connected platform of BIM 360 which is therein basically. Now in today's session, what I'm trying to do is like I'll be talking about more on the design collaboration aspect basically, and I'll take you to a very interesting workflow which is there. And I said that we released something like a new a feature which is there where we could directly collaborate with BIM 360 design. In the earlier sessions which were conducted by my colleagues, they might have already spoken about the work sharing on the cloud. Or, for example, if you have got different disciplines working on Revit, on the structural, architectural, MEP part, and all these different departments might be further divided into different group members which are there. Now, all these information of work sharing which is happening in could also move on the cloud. So your cloud remains the central piece of information which is there in basically. The second piece is like projects which are related to infrastructure. Like I said, the civil and infrastructure around your plant project which is there. It could be in the form of roads, it could be form of rails which are there in basically. These information again, which is an engineering information on the civil side, could also be integrated on the cloud. So you've got one set of information coming from Revit, one set of information coming from Civil 3D. Now the piece remains is the Autodesk Plant 3D, where if your project is divided into different zones and different areas, each and every zone area, the project member could integrate his information on the cloud. Now, what happens on the cloud is like when the information comes and gets integrated from different disciplines which are there in basically, we could follow something called as a managed collaboration, which is there, and it could be an integrated form of data. So it's like building up a virtual plant on the cloud by using all your desktop applications which are there in basically. Now, uh, but there are certain constraints, like sometimes people have who have mandates on plant projects which are there, and basically there's some confidential information and people feel that there could be some security breaches, etc. A lot of things coming up as a question basically. So we have also taken care of that aspect, where a tool from the Autodesk solution called as Autodesk Vault could be utilized, and it could work with BIM 360. So I mean that Vault and BIM 360 could be connected together, and you could have two sets of solution, whereas one is your on-prem data management of all sorts of information and documentation which is there in and the other set of information could be the work sharing information which is happening on the cloud. Now, to clear up myths about BIM 360. BIM 360 is a more secure platform, and if you're hearing it for the very first time, what we have done is like we have made up the BIM 360 design open to our customers, and there is an extended access program going on, and you could take advantage of that access program, start collaborating on the cloud basically. And based if you're concerned about the security aspects, you could also visit the security trust.autodesk website, which is there, and where we have all got the ISO certification in place on the basis of the security of the cloud platform which is there. And the current situation where we're all suffering due to the lockdowns facility, etc., cloud again becomes a better solution to collaborate and communicate basically. Now, while you're collaborating on BIM 360 design, you also need to understand is like BIM 360 design also caters to a lot of other set of information which a project team uses basically. It could be in a form of contractual documents, it could be form of Word, Excel, flow charts which are there, issues, RFIs, etc. So all those information could also be integrated inside BIM 360 design. So in short, whatever you publish as a version becomes as the latest version. That doesn't mean that your old version is not available. Even those information is available, and even after 6 months down the line, you need to understand as to mm, why this information is not updated, why the data isn't been updated, etc. So this is where you could utilize a BIM 360 along with the design collaboration aspects which are there. Now, I'll talk specifically about collaboration for plant 3D in this case, basically. And when we do these collaboration, we already had this collaboration with team earlier, but we do not use teams anymore. We use tools like BIM 360 design. So in case if you're using AutoCAD Plant 3D, you have a collaboration tab on part of top of the Plant 3D where you could integrate different sets of your projects which are there, in where the users could share the model, share the design, share P&ID documents which are there in, basically. And the other beauty is like the the P&IDs which you create in Plant 3D could be again utilized or integrated with Revit in that case. And so we also have a P&ID connector which is there in, which is a workflow tool available. So you could connect from the cloud to Revit using the P&ID drafting information being there on the cloud, basically. So that's how Plant 3D can collaborate with BIM 360, basically. Let's see a small overview and a walkthrough as to how this BIM 360 design works on top of Plant 3D, basically. Let's assume that you want to do these collaboration on Plant 3D, basically. So what you could do is like you could go onto the cloud, access the extended programs which are therein. You could create up your new projects which are therein, add members to it, define on the permission levels of the people which is therein. Now, as I said, we have a collaborate functionality which is therein. So it allows you to collaborate your plant project on the cloud. So while you're collaborating your plant project on the cloud, instead of storing these information on your local servers, we have got facilities like check-in, check-out, etc., which forms a part of plant project in order to retrieve information from the cloud. So in that case, you'll no more be opening up information from your local machines. If you're using BIM 360 design, you could open up your information which is in the form of any kind of documentation on the cloud, basically. And while you do this particular aspects, basically, it also gives you the freedom of checking and checking out, basically. So while you're doing these changes in your project which is therein, by adding different elements and attributes which are there, even documentations which have been created by your drafters, like your orthographic drawings, isometric drawings, which forms a part of Plant 3D, and even the report tools which are available, where you generate a line list, pump list, valve list, etc., could be taken on the cloud, basically. And while you're collaborating from your internal tool, from AutoCAD Plant 3D to BIM 360, it gives you facilities like communicating for your major stakeholders and team leads while you're doing this activity which is therein, where you could do markups on the cloud which is therein. So you could clear those markups, save those markups, add a issue, basically, and based on the communication of a markup issued by your you know stakeholder or the team lead which is therein, basically, you could make those subsequent changes in your plant project. So you can come down over here and decide that I want to do changes on my plant project and incorporate those information. So this is how the new feature of Plant 3D integrated with BIM 360 design works, basically. Now, how does the collaboration piece solve the very first top challenge which is therein, basically? The first piece is like the security aspect. So BIM 360 is quite cloud secured, which is there in, basically, as I said, typical security certifications already in place, and every information which is there for a particular project is maintained on a particular hub, which is unique to that particular organization. That means that it does not move on information from one organization to the other organization, which is there in, basically. The second piece is like you have got accountability on that data. Now, whoever has made a change, preferably, and if he's using Plant 3D in that case, you could identify the user, the drafter who has made that particular change. He has got accountability of that particular issue, and it is quite transparent. Preferably, when you raise a issue, raise a markup, there is a date and a time facility which is there, which tracks that when that collaboration or communication has been performed on the cloud basically. So it gives transparency for your entire set of team communication, and it also makes the team members very much accountable on your plant projects which are therein. And when I say EPC projects, I say that it is two project a complex which is therein, and there are lot of stakeholders who form a part of that particular piece of the project which is therein. So if your project is complex, if you want to have more enhanced team communication, if you want to save time on the costly errors which are there in basically costly time which is being spent on communicating between different stakeholders, where you lose your time for a particular project which is there, and that is where BIM 360 can come down very handy in that case basically. The other piece is like when I talk about security, preferably we have permissions at every level, which could help you on deciding who has to view that particular document, who has uploaded it, who can upload that document, who can edit and control that document. So you could have different set of permissions. You could restrict permission based on the top level hierarchy of your folders, or it could go to be a very very micro level of giving access to a particular external consultant on a particular document or a drawing which is there in basically. So the permissions could be managed, and the permissions are quite secured, so that no stakeholders should be worried about the secured information about a plant project which is therein. The next piece is like the design review aspect basically. For example, when you're doing team communications which are there in basically, preferably via the markups, viewing those markups, commenting on those markups basically, we also have something like approval workflow processes which are there in BIM 360. So the plant documentation, whether it is a 3D model, whether it is a P&ID drawing which is there in isometrics, etc., it could move through the set of approval processes before it is being pushed on to the construction site basically. You could also visualize your markups, your comments on a single page which is there in basically. And the collaboration is not only meant for your internal company team members. Collaboration is also meant with the external stakeholders which are there. And as I talked about project complexity, when it's a big plant project, and different tools being utilized, different stakeholders coming into project which is there in basic, your project becomes more and more complex, and there's more and more stakeholders, more and more information basically. How efficiently you could use those data and collaborate more efficiently between one particular firm or multiple organizations which is there in basically, that is where collaboration for plant projects becomes more and more necessity and becomes more and more important in that case basically. So the top three benefits of using a cloud technology with BIM 360 plant solutions, whether it is any of the AEC collection portfolio which is there. And first of all, you've got three aspects which are well informed. That is, you have got your enhanced security. So you can go back and use BIM 360, and it works on the cloud. So you need not do any installation. Security is assured. And it could go to file and folder level. You've got an improved team collaboration for communicating on any set of documents which moves inside for a plant project, and more stakeholders and a lot of information coming in, the project becoming more complex. So the project complexity gets minimized when you utilize collaboration and coordination tools. Now, in case if you want a more secured environment of an on-site kind of project, on-prem solution, then you could also integrate Vault with BIM 360 to get a more secured approach which is there in basically. So while I talked about BIM 360 design, we last to last years, etc., from the last 2 years, we know that we were using BIM 360 team. So in order to do your project backups, etc., so if it's a huge amount of data which is there, we also have a facility. Instead of doing that backup on BIM 360 team, you could do that backup directly on BIM 360 design, which is therein. So it doesn't matter if you're using Windows network, you're using SQL servers, or Vault, basically. So every piece of these information which is therein could move on to BIM 360 design, and then you could share these projects with the respective stakeholders which are there, basically. People who are using collaboration tools from the plant industry, I have tried to gather in two different customer successes, which is very important, and preferably they might be well known in the plant industry. One being Black and Wedge, where they use Autodesk solutions like Plant 3D and integrate with BIM 360, basically. So they're trying to use their in progress data, their project information which is therein. They are trying to achieve higher level of communication between the external and the internal stakeholders. One more example, again with the BIM 360 and Plant 3D, which is therein, where customers are using these facility which is therein in order to communicate with third party engineering service firms which are there, basically. So that was all about Plant 3D and sorry, BIM 360, which is therein. So in case if you are already using AutoCAD Plant 3D or Revit or Civil 3D or any other Autodesk solution, you could collaborate today with BIM 360 design, whether you are a P&ID drafter to a CAD technician to a owner operator or a contractor who form a left inside piece of your Plant 3D. Or it could be something like your project owners, your consultants, external stakeholders which are there in plant managers, like who are taking care of your plant project on the site, basically, or even the cost estimators, etc. So BIM 360 design could be used for collaboration, but BIM 360 again comes with pretty number of services which could be utilized on the cloud, basically. So that's the important piece of collaboration, basically. I'll come more on the native applications of design, basically. And I was talking about AutoCAD Plant 3D a lot, and I believe you might have already knowing about AutoCAD Plant 3D, but I'll just give you a short brief. Like, AutoCAD Plant 3D could be utilized in creating and modifying your P&IDs. You could create your piping and equipment modeling facilities which are therein. Plant 3D has got its own spec and catalog databases, etc., which it could be linked with SQLite, SQL Server, etc., which is therein. It has its own capability of equipment, structural modeling, which is therein, or piping for that aspect, which could, in short, help you in generating various kind of documentations which are therein, basically. Preferably, it could be orthographics, it could be isometrics, which are therein, basically. It could help you better collaborate and communicate with the structural stakeholders as well in tools like Revit, etc. It also helps in pushing on integrated multiple design platforms which are there in, basically. So integrating everything on Navisworks, which is there, basically. And it could be further utilized, like integrating with the cloud aspects, which I talked in my earlier slides, which are therein, and the coordination and the collaboration aspect, basically. So while we're talking about this, we'll talk about how easy it is P&ID. So in case currently if you're using plain AutoCAD to draft your P&ID, you could utilize AutoCAD Plant 3D for doing that, basically. And AutoCAD Plant 3D is enabled with the P&ID workspace, which is therein. So you could use your AutoCAD commands, but use also the intelligence of AutoCAD Plant 3D to draft your P&IDs, which is therein. And in case if you're really concerned about how easy it is to learn, and preferably it's a day's time, preferably. And in case if you install Plant 3D, change to your P&ID workspace. It has got a model and a drafting space. It has got a library where you could bring those P&ID elements together in order to build a flowchart which is there basically. The beauty is, like in case of plain AutoCAD, whenever you place things like your nozzles, walls, etc., it might not be that intelligent. But in case of AutoCAD Plant 3D, when you create any of these nozzles, when you create any of these walls which is there in, it is an automatic insertion which happens in. And the best part is, like, it also already comes with predefined industry symbology library which is therein. But in case in the many years of the time, if you've already started using AutoCAD, and you've built your databases and block charts on the top of AutoCAD P&ID, which on plate of AutoCAD, that could be imported into P&ID basically. The beauty is Plant 3D also has got a very simple data handling worksheet, where whatever elements which you try to insert on a P&ID workspace which is there in, basically it's been handled in an Excel sheet where it's been bifurcated into the number of line elements which are coming in, walls which are coming in, basically the number of equipments which are placed, etc. So it's pretty very easy, and it has got a simple data handling process which is there in. The next feature is, like, in case if you just use plain AutoCAD, or if you the disadvantage is, like, in case for a particular equipment or a particular line element, uh, if there are some kind of duplications which are there in the format of tags which you give for plant elements, like the equipment tag numbers, the pipe tag numbers, the wall numbers which are there in, etc. So the intelligence of AutoCAD Plant 3D helps in identifying those duplication elements which are there in, basically. And in case of AutoCAD, you might be doing those annotation updates by the help of your text, multi-line texting which is there in. But preferably in case of Plant 3D, as our elements are intelligent, it helps you to push on these annotation updates automatically on the top of your plant project basically. We also have facilities of integrating the P&ID piece and the plant piece basically. We also have something like off-page connectors which also form a part of your project basically. So you could go, and in case if you're already using AEC collection, you're using if you use AEC collection, please install AutoCAD Plant 3D, and you could utilize the facility for the AutoCAD P&ID drafting which is there. So you just need to be careful about the P&ID workspace which you're trying to use it, and preferably that will help you to draft your P&IDs in that case. The next piece is the equipment designing aspect which is therein. Now, for equipment designing, definitely there are different kinds of tools which are available. But in case of AutoCAD Plant 3D, Plant 3D also has capabilities of modeling these kind of any kind of equipments which are there in, basically. But Plant 3D also can integrate with tools like Inventor, which is being used by a lot of equipment manufacturers which are there in, basically. And the beauty is the information which is coming in from tools like Inventor or these equipment manufacturers are not dumb information. They are intelligent information, starting from the information of the size of the pedestal to the pump details which are therein, to the information which is related to any of these attributes of these equipments are available, and that could be utilized in Plant 3D for further generation of your layouts which is there. And so you could integrate Inventor and Plant 3D, and typically create documentations which are there in, like preferably your manufacturing information or drawings which are there in, plant layouts for that matter, which is there in, basically. And you could also keep use the intellectual property data which comes from tools like Inventor, and these could be accurately placed in any pieces of your plant model which is there in, basically. I'll come to the next piece of structural aspects. And, when I talk about structure, preferably plant, it comprises a lot of structures which are there in, basically. And Plant 3D again has got a catalog of structural member catalogs which are there, and basically there are also tools like miscellaneous macros which are available for creation of your stairs, platforms, and ladders. But in case if you're using AEC collection, you might have noticed a tool called as advanced steel. So any kind of structural steel elements, you could use the XRF process where you could integrate plant models and integrate the advanced steel information. Take the advanced steel information which is therein, advanced steel has got a capability of a lot of structural member information catalogs which are available, which could be also helps you to do connection detailing. So you need not use a competitive tool to do that. Basically, the Autodesk AEC solution will help you in taking care of that basically. So you do connection detailing. When you're doing connection detailing, any minute aspect of that particular connection, starting from a base plate to a complicated pipe connection which is there, in basically every parameter information could be tweaked in advanced steel. And while you're doing all these aspects, it could also take care of your aspects of advanced steel, where you could do piece mark numbering, where you could also utilize generation of drawings like your general arrangement, your single part drawings which are there in, assembly drawings which are there in, etc. And for example, if your company also does something into fabrication as well, in advanced steel could help you also in generating the CNC outputs which are there basically. So generation of your NC files and DXF files could be also generated inside advanced steel basically. Now, the other important piece of your plant project is your piping. So Plant 3D again has a capability of, piping. And when I say piping, we already had the specification and the catalog facilities which are available in Plant 3D. So you could do a spec-driven piping, which is there in both the automatic and the manual way of routing your pipes, which are therein. The beauty is like the modeling of the pipe is quite easier. The connectivity is retained. You could automatically insert, while you're trying to place a pipe of a particular size, the spec and catalog at the background where we have defined the type of the flanges which has to be utilized for your plant project, or the type of walls which has to be utilized. You can pick and choose, or you could also choose a workflow where you take the information from P&ID and start using those information and attributes on the top of Plant 3D which is therein, and insert those connections inside Plant 3D basically. The other piece is, while you're doing pipe routing, where you're pacing pipe supports, pipe connections which are therein, what you could also do is like you could generate your COG reports which are therein. You could generate your isometrics of your plant project which is therein. You could also generate your orthographic drawings for your plant project as well. And so that all forms a important piece of the piping tool in Plant 3D basically. Now, while I'm doing this, let's go to the next aspects. And I talked about advanced steel for that matter. Again, as Plant 3D P&ID was quite simple on the top of AutoCAD, similarly advanced steel. So if you're doing a plant project and if you're involved into structural elements which are therein, so the structural piece of the zone or the area of the project could be taken care inside advanced steel basically. Uh, the first thing, it is built on AutoCAD. It has got a modeling engine which is therein. The best part is like we could also go to a next level. For example, if there are pipe racks or elements which are very very typical, which forms a part of your project, preferably you could utilize the principles of Dynamo in order to customize your workflow, and preferably the same aspect of detailing a particular pipe rack structure takes you 3 days. Might be Dynamo might help you in a day's time for doing detailing and generating the respective output. So you could customize your workflows along with Dynamo. So Revit could also be integrated with Dynamo. Advanced Steel could be integrated with Dynamo in order to do these processes faster, which is there in basically. And the next part is you could automatically generate any kind of documentation which is there in basically. What I can do is like I'll talk about the features of advanced steel which is therein. As I said, it works on AutoCAD, so it has got a CAD interface, very easy to use, very easy to learn. There are a lot of learning videos available on a lot of portals which are there in basically where you could learn how to utilize advanced steel for your steel detailing processes. Uh, Before doing the integration with the steel detailing tools, preferably you also want to integrate your workflows with the structural and the analysis tools which are there in basically like robot structures which are there in basically or bringing in the start information basically into advanced steel basically. So we have got interoperability between these structural analysis tools as well in basically. And we have got intelligent modeling. When I say intelligent modeling, preferably, as I said, we could follow 40 country codes. So it doesn't matter if you're doing a transmission tower project or an offshore project, a plant project for that matter, which is there in basically, or even a small kind of industrial sheds. Advanced steel could be utilized for all these kinds of projects which are there in basically. So intelligent modeling capacity, the databases of your steel catalogs are available. You also have facility to do steel connections, the detailing out of your steel models which are there in basically. You could do visualization, you could generate GAs, shop fabrication, generate CNC output. The next piece is like people who usually work on steel projects uh, ask me like whether you could work on a single project simultaneously. So subsequently you might must have that many number of licenses for your steel project, and you could use the multi-user or the single user mode functionality for this particular purpose which is there in basically. And you could use the multi-user functionality where you could collaborate on a planned project very successfully basically. O- so there are different tools for automating your modeling phases. Like there are macros which are available for connections. There are macros which are available for miscellaneous items which form a part of your project. In case if you're doing something very specific to sheet metal, plate work, etc., then there are plate works functionalities which are there in basically for your conical and folded elements as well in this case basically. The next part is the documentation aspect. So you could generate respective documents in advanced steel basically on the steel aspect, shop drawings, bill of materials, CNC data. And you also have a document management manager functionality where in case if there are certain, when you're updating your model, which piece of the model has been updated, whether it is impacting my drawings, etc. So these document manager can let you know about these kind of changes on your plant project which is there in basically. The next piece is Revit, which forms an important part and for a plan project, whether it is your architectural, structural, MEP, or a multidiscipline coordination which you want to do in, and you want to generate documents like floor plans, elevations, sections, schedules, etc. That is where Revit could be utilized. So I talked about a lot of BIM solution. Now, Revit also has its capability of doing steel connections as well, and as advanced steel as well, basically. But in case if you want to generate detailing and fabrication aspects, there is where advanced steel comes in handy basically. So each and every parameters of your connection could be edited in Revit as you do it in advanced steel. We also have a design process check option which is there, and whether the connection which you have applied surpasses that particular implications on the code or not, and you could generate a report out of that particular connection in case of Revit as well as an advanced steel for that matter basically. The next piece is in case of your plant project, there could be a lot of concrete elements which are therein, like detailing of those concrete elements. If you're trying to do it in-house, basically, especially for typical elements like staircases, your footings which are therein, basically, even for that matter, complicated infrastructure elements as well, and could be you could utilize tools like Dynamo for detailing those kind of elements in plant 3D in Revit basically. And Revit has got functionalities which could understand parameters which are required for concrete detailing, which could be utilized basically on the top of Revit. The next part is the project collaboration and the visualization piece of it. Navisworks, is quite a popular tool where, in case if you want to do something like your collaboration, where you want information from every stakeholder which is there in visualizing that, checking out your clashes which are therein, or doing the sequential simulation planning which is therein. Even high quality renderings and visualizations could also be performed inside Plan 3D, which is therein. You could use Max for that matter for doing the rigging studies as well, by using the project collaboration and visualization tools like Navisworks and 3ds Max for that matter, basically. This is a small video, preferably it's a part of a Statoil project which is there, where they automatically use Navisworks for their plant project, basically. And you could do quick visualizations, quick class checks, quick simulations in order to understand your project, in order to do basic rigging studies for your offshore projects as well, and basically. Yeah. The next piece is, before I move on, the visualization aspects. Like if you don't want to do with the high quality rendering using Max to that matter, you have a cloud rendering facility which is there in top of every tool of AEC collection, whether you use Revit, Advanced Steel, Civil 3D for that matter, basically, or even for Plant 3D. Utilize this cloud collaboration tool, which could utilize these cloud rendering tools which are there in, where you want to create a quick image rendering which you want to do, and basically, or a quick panorama of your plant site which is there in. So you could utilize your cloud rendering facilities, and you could do a very quick rendering on the top of your plant models which are there, and which will help you into a visualization of that particular plant project for that matter which is there in, basically. So it allows you to do a quick 3D visualization of your plant project. So you could utilize the 3D panoramic facilities on the cloud rendering to visualize your plant project, basically. So that was the end of talking about a lot of features which could be utilized from AEC collection, utilizing tools like BIM 360. I just want you to when you go out of this presentation, just to remember about 5 key benefits why you should use building information modeling, depending upon whether you're using tools like Revit, Plant 3D, Navisworks, Advanced Steel, or AutoCAD for that matter, or even if you're collaborating, basically. So start using BIM for your plant design projects, which will help you to reduce the errors which are there in, basically, or detailed changes which happens on your project in that matter, basically. The second piece is, like, BIM allows you to do a greater design and the visualization check which is there. And so you have a better design through the visualization processes which are there in, basically. The third is the improved collaboration aspect, basically. So in case if you utilize BIM 360 for that matter, and whether you will not leave the project only till the design phase, you could move the same information and collaborate better with your stakeholders, with your internal and external project members which are there in, basically. Communicate on that project, basically, through improved collaboration by using facilities like BIM 360 design, basically. And in case if you could reduce your time, reduce your errors, reduce your omissions on your project, preferably it all leads to improved cost management aspect which is there in, basically. And the best part is, like, uh, uh, you could start up with a very faster project startup in this case, basically. So every information being in place, basically. I missed out one more key benefit. It's like utilizing BIM can help you in the overall workflow of the whole project life cycle which is there, not only after the completion of that particular plant project, but also maintaining that particular plant project which is there in for the next 40-50 years which is there in. So So those are the key benefits, and here's a small slide where I talk about integration with every tool of Autodesk AEC collection platform, and also a third tool like BIM 360 design, which is therein. These all could be integrated together for a successful multidisciplinary plant project, which is therein basically. So now we are at the end of the session, and what I've done is like you're open for Q&A. You could post your questions in the chat window, basically, and I'll be open to answer all your questions, basic in that case, basically. Meanwhile, what we could also do in is like we are running a small poll. So on the top of your screen, please try to answer the questions related to the poll which is therein basically. Yeah, so the poll question is open, and preferably please go and answer the poll questions which are there in basically. And meanwhile, I'll try to answer your questions in that case. So there's the one question which comes on what's the speed which should be utilized while using BIM 360 basically. So if you're doing collaboration on the cloud, we suggest that it could be up till 5 mbps, but people are collaborating on the cloud with a lesser speed. There is an page which is open on talking about the internet speed on the cloud basically, so that could be utilized in order to understand how do you perform design collaboration on the cloud which is therein basically. So here comes your next poll question as well. So there's a question from Nimesh that AutoCAD P&ID, can we get files from PDMS basically? In case the information, as I understand, PDMS has got a lot of connectors which are therein. You could integrate with PDMS for structural via the open steel for steel information. You also have the DWG connectors which are therein, which could be utilized and integrated with the AutoCAD P&ID for that particular matter, basically. So there's a question, is there any collaboration to resolve this issue, as they also have to okay. So for example, to answer your question, these organizations are different, and there are certain standard proprietary formats by which we could collaborate between one software developed organization to other software developed organization which is there basically. So currently the formats which you could utilize is like IFCs, SDNFs, DWG, DXFs, to collaborate between different solutions of between PDMS and Plan 3D for that matter, basically. Yeah. The next question is. Why advanced steel is necessary in case if your plant projects involve steel elements which are therein, and your task also involves into detailing of those steel structures. You also have a task of generation of drawings of which is your GA shop and fabrication. Then is when advanced steel becomes a very necessary part of a plant project which is therein basically. See, BIM 360 cannot be used offline. When I say cannot be used offline, that means once your project is being collaborated on the cloud, you could open that information in your native application, which is therein. Those information of that particular project will not be stored on the cloud for that matter. Sorry, it will not be stored on your local machine. It will be stored on the cloud basically. So definitely internet connection is definitely required when you work on the cloud between Plant 3D and BIM 360, which is there. So there's a question again from Nimesh that does BIM 360 manage other softwares which are there? Nimesh, to answer your question, BIM 360 can handle more than 150 file formats, but with our native tools, we could do a better effective design collaboration. Saying that, we could integrate with a lot of file formats. So just go on Google, type the file formats which are able to be visualized on BIM 360, and you will see the list of formats which could be shared on BIM 360, starting from IFCs to something coming from SolidWorks, or even your tool data coming from Microsoft, like Word, Excel, etc. So all those kind of formats could go on the cloud basically. The next question is about has the reinforcement been made easier in Revit? Definitely, there are improved features in the Revit 2021, which is there in basically. But there are a lot of other third-party add-ons. If you want a very easy kind of reinforcement detailing facilities, which are there, and there are add-ins like Sophistic, which is there, tools coming from Greatech, etc. In case if you're thinking about quick and easy detailing. But saying that, you could also utilize the in-house tool of Dynamo, and which could help you in easier reinforcement detailing and modeling aspect which is there. How this BIM can be integrated with Autodesk Vault? So Autodesk Vault is basically a data and a document management system which lies on your prem, which is there in basically. And when you're collaborating, instead of collaborating on the cloud, you're collaborating with your local machine using the Vault approach, which is there in basically. The best part is like it holds the information about the change in your model, when the model has been updated basically, and it gives you better document and data management facilities which are therein. So what I could do is like preferably you could drop down email to the organizer, and I'll be happy to share you more information on how BIM could be collaborated, or how BIM data could be collaborated better using uh, Autodesk Vault basically. The file format which is being utilized to share the data to advanced steel from stat. So you could collaborate via two formats from stat to advanced steel. That is, one is via the SDNF format which is there. You could also integrate via the IFC format as well basically in that case. I believe this question is, can we modify information in BIM 360? We cannot edit a model in BIM 360. BIM 360 remains only as a cloud and a collaboration tool for that matter basically. So BIM 360 is only for collaborating, communication and team management basically. So there's a question, is there a workflow between Revit to advanced steel and advanced steel to robot structure? So to answer your question, Bhagesh, Revit and advanced steel can collaborate via a format called as SMLX file format. Saying that, both Revit can also collaborate to robot structure. So there is a direct integration and collaboration. Similarly, advanced steel can also collaborate onto robot structures, meaning that if you do certain design changes in robot, that could be integrated back into both Revit and advanced steel, which is there in basically. And these collective information then can move or collaborated through BIM 360 on the cloud basically. So, does BIM 360 manage revision numbers? BIM 360 can take in information from your drawings, and there are attributes which could be used for customization of your drawings, and you could pick up the revision attributes from your drawings basically, and definitely that could be added inside BIM 360 basically. So that's I answer all the questions. In case if you've got further questions, please drop a mail to the marketing person who has shared invitations and mails to you will be free to respond to your questions and queries in that case. Thank you.